And we are live. Welcome, everyone, to the Trish Regan Show. A very big day once again here on the program. The Autopen investigation is heating up in a massive way. And now Donald Trump is making sure that that doctor's coming in. He's getting subpoenaed. As we speak, we're going to get all into all of it. Meanwhile, KGP, she's flinging her party. I mean, she can't get out of the place fast enough, right? What's going on there? This is the woman who is Biden's press spokesperson, one of the worst, by the way, I'm just going to tell you. I mean, Jen Psaki had it all over her, but she lied and she lied and she lied and she lied. She was like the chief liar. And now, all of a sudden, as the Autopen investigation heats up, she's fleeing her entire party. We're going to talk about that. Some people making the point that she is quite the grifter. A huge book coming out, Can't let Jake make all the money now, can we? All right, Trump breaking up with Elon Musk. That news just hitting the tape. We've got the sound for you. And by the way, I got to show you these stunning new poll numbers on Donald Trump, proving that all he is doing is working for the American people. What do you know? Welcome to the show. We're in the top 100 right now. Isn't it amazing on YouTube? Make sure you subscribe, share, like. This is a big story, a very big story. The hearings have begun. The investigation has begun. And what do you know? Donald Trump is saying, I want to see that doctor in there. He's got to get subpoenaed as well. And Comer making it very clear, they're sending the subpoena today. Just to give you a little bit of background on all of this, don't forget, Joe Biden was the one who didn't seem to know what day it was. According to Josh Hawley, who spoke with Secret Service, he was getting lost in his closet in the morning. You've seen all the tape. We've watched it ad nauseum. It's sort of amazing because they were calling us, well, actually, KJP was calling us, to be very specific about it, cheap fakes, whenever I was showing you the video of poor Joe Biden not seeming to know what day it was, not seeming to be able to do a darn thing. And you know what? It turns out it's all true, right? All of it is true. And so now this guy, okay, let me put him front and center. Hopefully you'd rather look at me than him, but nonetheless, this is Kevin O'Connor, and he's getting hauled right up into the lion's den with Comer saying, we gave you a chance, buddy. We gave you a chance to do this the nice way, but you didn't want to actually participate. Here he is speaking with my friend and former colleague, and I go on his show a lot now these days too, over on Newsmax, my friend Rob Schmidt. Do you know, the woman who actually, I digress, set up this YouTube channel for me years ago, I never used to use it. Great girl. She was super young back then. She's like, you need to check out this YouTube thing. I'm like, what? Actually, she's his producer right now. So we like Rob, all right, over on Newsmax. I like him and I like his producer. They had Comer on last night and he broke some news. He said he's sending those subpoenas out today and the doctor's the first one to get it.
They delayed a day or two, but we finally got our staff attorneys with his attorney on the phone. And at the end of the day, we made demands that he had to come in and answer questions. They could refuse to do that. So I'm going to announce on your show tonight that he will receive a subpoena tomorrow. Dr. O'Connor will be the first person to receive an official subpoena. We're serious about these people coming in. So now he's going to have to come in and do a full-blown deposition as opposed to a transcribed interview.
Maybe it would have been easier to do the interview. He probably doesn't want to go in because he's a doctor and he's going to cite his privilege with his patient. But, it's a little bit different in this situation because you're talking about the former president of the United States. And if you weren't giving him some basic tests, what was the reason for that? I don't care about protocol. Okay, so you're in your 70s and your 80s. You don't need the test for prostate cancer. But guess what? You're the president of the United States. I think that we ought to be holding you to a bigger, better standard, don't you? I mean, come on. When he doesn't even know where the darn chair is. There was a chair before KJP calls me a cheap fake. There was a chair, but my gosh, boy, did he really want to sit in it. I mean, then there was the Where's Jackie episode. There were moments when he was just zoning out. There were some that really scared me. I've shown you guys some of those things that really scared me. But then there were these other moments, right? Like, for example, when he would lose it in the debate. I mean, that's when it became obviously public knowledge Well, it was public knowledge. What am I saying? It was just that they were all a bunch of deniers, gaslighting us all the time. I'm like, hey, I'm seeing what I think you're seeing, but somehow the emperor has no clothes really works. Anyway, James Comer, he has started the hearings. Let's listen in because this is big. I consider this biggest political scandal in modern history. You cannot cover up for a president just because you want to keep him in power. If he needs the 25th Amendment, he needs the 25th Amendment. We need that doctor in there. He needs to explain. Either he's a shoddy doctor or he's covering something up. Anyway, let's go to Comer, who had a lot of questions.
I've launched an investigation, or the committee has, we all have, into the role of former senior White House officials in possibly abusing the authority of former President Joe Biden while the former president was rapidly deteriorating mentally and physically. We will be conducting transcribed interviews of a number of former White House officials to understand who was really making the decisions for President Biden. Your group, Power the Future, has expressed concerns that over half a dozen of the Biden administration executive actions, which were signed by the Autopen, related to climate policy, should be deemed null and void, again, due to the fact that they were signed by the Autopen without any public comment from President Biden confirming his knowledge of them. Now, why is it important that the American people know the truth about whether President Biden knowingly signed these orders, making significant and drastic shifts in our energy policy?
Yeah. I mean, like, energy policy is kind of a big deal, right? And by the way, that energy policy is a big part of what contributed to all the inflation we saw. And we got a lot of it. Donald Trump coming out moments ago, I'm going to show you the tape, saying how proud he is that we have brought inflation down, and it's a big, big deal. But anyway, you've got Comer asking the right questions here because these things do need to be answered. And let's go to Turner, who's answering some of these now.
Thank you for the question, sir. We're looking at this from the sense of deceit of the American people. This is impersonation of the president. Staffers, of course, have a lot of leniency in what they do working on behalf of the president, but these executive orders that we identified, there's no evidence of Joe Biden in first person, in his voice as president, talking about them. And I see some Pennsylvanians on the panel. When you ban the export of liquid natural gas and you never get asked about it in person, one has to wonder if Joe Biden did it or if a staffer did it on his behalf.
Now, you specifically expressed concern that President Biden was not aware of that specific action to implement the executive order pausing liquefied natural gas permits. Now, why are you specifically concerned the president was unaware of that specific order?
Well, there's an anecdote from earlier this year where Speaker of the House Johnson mentioned he was in conversation with President Biden and brought it up. And the president said, I don't know what you're talking about. At the time, that was understood as, wow, maybe the president's a little worse off than we realized. But maybe two things can be true. Maybe he really didn't know what Speaker Johnson was talking about. Mm-hmm. Maybe he had no idea he passed this executive order. And if the president has never asked about it and he hides from the press and there's no opportunity for him to get asked in public about it, how do we know he actually did it? And these are serious executive orders. This is not...
It is bizarre. You know, when President Trump signed his executive orders, we saw him sign the executive orders. He had a big event. He was, they were talking about the executive orders. They said, this is what this specific executive order is. We never saw any of that.
No, and lives were destroyed, sir. And when you ban the export of liquid natural gas, there are hundreds of thousands of men and women who work in the natural gas industry. Lives were destroyed. People went bankrupt because of that. And we have no evidence that Joe Biden himself actually
We haven't found any evidence either.
So that was the congressman actually from Ohio, Mike Turner, Republican congressman, and he's been very much a proponent of increasing U.S. liquefied natural gas exports, suggesting and arguing that it's going to benefit the U.S. economy. Look, I'm just going to tell you, natural gas is a global market. So you can't sit there and say, I'm going to cut it off, I'm going to cut it off. I mean, you obviously want to protect yourself domestically, but it makes sense to be able to have plenty here and then export the remainder, right? Anyway, the issue being that Biden didn't seem to understand or know anything about what he was signing. And that gets back to the very central issue of all of this, which is that you cannot have a situation where you have a president who's mentally incapacitated and nobody's willing to speak up, and instead you got the Autopen signing off on everything, whether it be policy or whether it be pardons, right? We heard from a congressman, actually over on Benny's show earlier this week, who said he believed that there was a pay for pardon scheme going down. I'll tell you, they got lots of questions. Donald Trump is right to demand the investigation. Comer's got his investigation. We got investigations galore. I'll tell you, and you know what, before anybody says, nothing's going to happen, I actually think this time you're going to find some stuff out, especially once when we get to the doctor, especially once we see the medical records. If they were hiding stuff there, we got big problems. And you got to get what's-her-face, KJP, in there as well. The one that is out there trying to peddle and sell a new book. Anyway, I sat down just a short time ago with Congressman Bill Huizenga out in Michigan, asked him about some of these things. Let's listen. Welcome to the program, Congressman Bill Huizenga from Michigan. It is great to see you. Thank you for being here.
Good to be with you, Trish, and thanks for having me.
Autopen, we're saying that people didn't know anything. Biden, he obviously didn't know what day it was. I mean, a lot of concerns about all the stuff that went through. You think about the 8,000 plus pardons in the end. Yeah. Are we going to see much? I mean, is this going to be a full-blown investigation? Because I look at this, Congressman, as one of the biggest political scandals of our generation. I mean, you can't have a president who doesn't know what's up and not invoke the 25th Amendment, for goodness sakes. That's what it's there for.
Look, the irony is that the same people who were calling for the 25th Amendment to be applied to Donald Trump first go around were completely silent when arguably it really was necessary to implement with Joe Biden. And clearly there was not a full understanding, and he clearly was not having his full faculties. And who was running the country is a legitimate question. Who was running the country? Was it Jill Biden? Was it his chief of staff?
Her chief of staff?
Her chief of staff? Was it John Kerry? There's all kinds of rumors around as to who was actually making the day-to-day decisions on this stuff. And I think that's part of the reason why you saw, in many ways, on some of these big issues, people were frozen in place. And then you saw the harder left side of the equation in his party kind of take some control and start running with things that arguably the Joe Biden of old never would have agreed to. And now maybe he changed.
No.
Or maybe he didn't really, but this was allowed to happen.
I know Comer's out there in front of it. I saw Josh Hawley the other day saying, my gosh, he had heard from Secret Service that he'd get lost in his closet in the morning. Yeah. So what are we going to do about it?
Both Jim Jordan and James Comer are looking at this. They need to do that. We're going to let those committees do their work, which they need to do. And but this has to get answered. This has to get uncovered, and it's too important. And frankly, this is I think the biggest political scandal in the modern era. If this is true, that Joe Biden really wasn't making those decisions, and that it was a group of other people doing so. This is not just like, hey, I was too busy dealing with China or some other issue. This was, I didn't really understand what was going on, and others were stepping in. That is,
not to mention his health.
And Trish, they put this guy up to go get reelected.
I know.
What would have happened if they truly had hit him in the basement again for another full term, and he didn't actually get exposed on the debate stage the way that it was in front of millions of people, and who knows where this would have gone.
We talked about a whole lot more, and I'm going to get into more with Congressman Bill Huizenga. We'll be showing you that over the weekend, including, Don, your favorite subject, Bitcoin. But anyways, on the House Financial Services Committee, we had a lot to discuss. But his point, like mine, this is a big freaking deal, right? You guys were going to run the guy again? Come on. That's exactly what they tried to do. Hey, we all saw it. Had it not been, and you got to wonder, who the heck was okay with him doing the debate? You guys, your whole little plot kind of fell apart when this was broadcast to the world.
That of any president in a 4-year period, number one. Number two, that $2 trillion tax cut benefited the very wealthy. What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. Billionaires in America. And what's happening? They're in a situation where they, in fact, pay 8.2% in taxes. If they just paid 24%, 25%, either one of those numbers. They've raised $500 billion, I should say, in a 10-year period. We'd be able to wipe out his debt. We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with.
Oh boy!
Look.
Oh boy! Remember this?
We finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare because...
It was bad, right? It was really, really, really bad. And yet they wanted us to think he was great. I mean, Dr. Jill, moments after this disastrous debate that we're all sitting there going, can you believe this? Can you believe this? Can you believe this? She's getting out there saying, oh, honey bunny, you did so great. I mean, it's like he learned to use the body or something for the first time, listening to Dr. Jill, right?
Joe, you did such a great job. You answered every question. You knew all the facts. And let me ask the crowd, what did Trump do? Lied! Yes.
Wow, wow, wow. You know, guys, this is getting serious, though, because I think a lot of people are going to have to answer some of these questions. We're looking at, for example, who's being brought in by Comer. Let me share with you some of their names and pictures. Taking a look at all of this, you got Anita Dunn that's going to have to come in. You got Ron Klain that's going to have to come in. We already talked about the lawyer, the doctor, which is O'Connor, and Steve Ricchetti. You've got Bruce Reed. You've got Michael Donnellan. All these people that are going to have to come in. You know who I want to see come in as well? I want to see none other than the chief of staff for one, Dr. Jill Biden, because he's the guy that I'm hearing was controlling everything. And interestingly enough, Project Veritas got one of the DNC members, David Hogue, on record, under camera type thing, where he said, yeah, like this was the guy that was kind of controlling everything. And it makes sense given that Dr. Jill was guarding access to her husband. So wouldn't it make sense that her chief of staff then had a whole lot of say on all of this? So you're going to have all these people getting trotted through, and it's important that this happen. It's important that it happen because you can't allow for somebody who shouldn't be the president to be the president. I mean, think about what they were saying. Remember back in the day about how Donald Trump wasn't of right mental capacity, all that stuff that they used to say, and they wanted to invoke the 25th Amendment back then with him. And yet that same cast of characters, crickets. When you had poor Joe getting allegedly lost in the closet, nothing. We heard nothing from them. So I'm telling you guys, you know what? Things have got to change, and we got to have people being held accountable. It's really, really critical right now, super critical. KJP, she's fleeing the party. Remember her, KJP? She's the one telling us, oh, we're the bunch of cheap fakes, for goodness sakes. We're going to talk about that coming up. Quick reminder, we are in the top 100. How do you like that? Top 100 podcasts here. Thanks to you guys. So thank you for that. We're climbing. I think Don pointed this out in the chat earlier on. We were number 52 last week. We have jumped all the way to number 36. So keep it coming. Make sure you subscribe, like, share, make a comment, all that good stuff. I got to say, though, this is really getting interesting because you have none other than KJP, who was kind of, the chief liar, if you would, there in the White House, departing the party. Just as she publishes a new book. She seems to be fleeing. Looking for some cover here. I guess it's getting kind of dicey. Washington can be kind of a tough place. And now that these hearings are going on, she's going to have to make a living. Karine Jean-Pierre, Biden's former press secretary, reveals she has left the Democrat Party. Yeah. She's independent now.
How do we get out of this? How do we protect our democracy? And this is my answer. In an era of misinformation, disinformation, What I have decided to do, and I really have thought long and hard about this, is to follow my own compass. Yeah, and I think you all have called this the cheap fakes video, and that's exactly what they are. They are cheap fakes video. They are done in bad faith, and some of your news organization have been very clear, have stressed that these the right-wing critics of the president have a credibility problem because of the fact checkers have repeatedly caught them pushing misinformation, disinformation, and so we see this, and this is something coming from your part of the world, calling them cheap fakes.
Misinformation, disinformation, just exactly who was reporting the misinformation, disinformation. Oh, gee, gosh, I can kind of think. We can go back to the campaign, shall we? The 51X spooks trying to sell you a whole storyline about how that was nothing, that Hunter Biden laptop, but a bunch of misinformation, disinformation fed you courtesy of the Russians and Rudy Giuliani. So that's strike number one. Oh, and then the virus that hit us in March 2020 that was being researched in the Wuhan lab in China, that was from Wet Market. That never could have come from Wuhan, China. No. Same team, okay? Spinning the same lies. And then you fast forward to KJP being in action, and suddenly she's trying to tell you the economy's okay, the economy's doing great, while we're looking at the staggering inflation. And then as everybody sees poor Joe who just can't ever seem to figure his way out of a paper bag, for goodness sakes, she's trying to tell us that he's A-okay. That there's nothing wrong upstairs. I'm sorry, but you know what? She lied a lot. And I get that the job is all about lying, okay? I get it. Jen Psaki was actually really quite talented at it. You know, the one that's sinking MSNBC's ratings right now. Seriously, I mean, like, I think they're going to have to bring Rachel Maddow back. Yikes. She's worse than Rachel. So Jen Psaki was very talented as a liar. And then KJP took it to a whole new level. I actually don't think she was very good at it. I think she really got stuck, especially on the economic stuff. I always noticed this. By the way, I know her because I used to have her on my show. She used to work at Fox. And whenever we needed, well, a not so smart Dem, I hate to say it, but she kind of fit the bill. And so, now she's out there floundering. I think there are some reasons why she's doing this. One, she's scared about what's coming in terms of the Autopen investigation. And two, she didn't have really any other place to go. I don't think anybody was going to hire her. Here's Scott Jennings on CNN talking about her. He totally slams her, torches her, basically, there last night. Watch.
I'd like to congratulate Democrats for ridding yourselves of this untalented mediocrity. I mean, this is the most self-aggrandizing liar that has ever held this job. The White House press secretary is a sacred position, and she stood up there for years and lied through her teeth to the American people. She is the literal worst White House press secretary in my lifetime. And what she did in the last year and a half of the Biden administration, cheap fakes, the entire cover-up around the president's mental faculties, she was in the center of it. So congratulations for getting rid of this, but Democrats deserve everything they're getting here for putting her in that job in the first place.
Yeah, you know what? He's right. I mean, you're the ones who wanted to put her in there. I mean, that was like DEI on steroids. I'm sorry, because she was not that good. She just wasn't, all right? Peppermint Patty, for all that we can say about her, she was actually pretty good at the job. And when she didn't have an answer on things, she would circle back to you, right? Whereas KJP just kind of floundered up there and I think kept digging herself in, lie after lie after lie after lie. And it was really obvious. It got to the point where it was super, super obvious. And so she's going to be questioned as well. How much were you interacting with the president? I mean, theoretically, you would interact with the president almost daily, right? You're his press person. But maybe she didn't. And she's saying, if we listen to her, that the party itself was vicious, that the party started attacking him. She'd never seen anything like it. This is partly why she's leaving. I think it's also just the reality of the Autopen. That's why she's leaving and the investigation. But, she needs to make a dime. Outdoing Jake Tapper on the grifting. Here is KJP back in February hinting that she was going to leave and become independent. I think that's the title of her book.
Personally, I think what was the toughest thing to see in the 3 weeks was there was a disconnect for me what was happening with leadership in the Democratic Party and how it was truly, as my former colleague, communications director Ben LeBolt said, it was a firing squad. And I had never seen anything like it before. I'd never seen a party do that in the way that they did. And it was hurtful and sad to see that happening. A firing squad around a person who I believe was a true patriot, a person who I believe did everything that he can for this country, a person who I believe, as I mentioned before, has done more in one term than most presidents had done in 2 terms, historical things. And I was shocked by what I was seeing.
And Karine, just to clarify, these are other Democrats and Democratic leadership coming out against Biden.
Yep, I had never seen anything like that. That was, if you're asking me, the thing that I saw in those 3 weeks, that was shocking. Shocking. And instead of coming together to really be unified and trying to figure out how do we save our democracy, how do we fight back, that's what I was seeing. And, that's what we decided to do for 3 weeks. And, it was truly, truly unfortunate. And I think it hurt us more than I think folks realized to have done that.
And I know we're coming, and thank you so much for your question.
Thank you so much for your question.
I know we're coming up on.
Woo! Okay. So the word on the street is that she's looking for a buck, okay? So looking for a payout. Here's Colin Rugg, who's great on Twitter. If you don't follow him, check him out. He writes, wow. Out-grifting Jake Tapper, what was I telling you, is an impressive accomplishment. Jean-Pierre has revealed that she is now coming out as an independent in her new book. Okay, she's already come out as a gay person. So she was, when I said like DEI on steroids, like they were looking for somebody who checked a whole lot of boxes. And apparently KJP checked them all, right? She was a black woman. She was gay. She was married to another woman. Apparently they're no longer married, but what a CNN reporter, whatever. It doesn't matter. Like if you can't do the job, I don't care. You can check every box in the world. If you're not good at the job, and she was not, then you are going to have problems. And she did have problems, and the administration had problems. Of course, we can't entirely blame her because the candidate himself had problems. So KJP needed a new gig. And she wanted to go back to TV. Don't forget, she was a Fox contributor. That's how I know her. And, well, it didn't work out. She's now the press person for the New York City Pride Parade. Woohoo! Hey, that's a winning gig. So she didn't get any kind of television gig. My hunch was that, okay, so she was getting desperate, and this is why she came out with the book. And now my hunch was reported on by none other than the Daily Mail. Actually, in today's edition, just moments ago, we see this story crossing Karine Jean-Pierre's embarrassing rejection from daytime TV show where she hoped to be a big star. Okay, so she was looking for a gig on The View. I mean, who doesn't aspire to be on The View one day? I'm kidding. It's got to be the worst gig in all of television. Seriously. Even if you're on the side of all the libs, it's got to be the worst. I know it's the worst gig because I have a couple of friends, both Abby and Megan, that worked there. Anyway, this goes on to say that apparently they let it be known that all the spots were taken. So there was no opportunity, if you would, for one KJP on The View. And so, she's probably sitting there going, why can't I get a big TV job? For goodness sakes, you got Jen Psaki taking over for none other than Rachel Maddow. I mean, that's not going so well. We talked about that yesterday, right? I mean, the ratings are so dismal that some people are saying, can we get Rachel Maddow back? That's how bad it is. I mean, they may actually have to put the network out of business before going forward with their verdant MSNBC spinoff thing. I mean, get rid of MSNBC, right? Keep CNBC, keep some of the other things like Oxygen, Sci-Fi, and do something that's a little healthy for investors, because I don't think you're going to ever see the light of day in terms of making a profit over at MSNBC these days, especially with the likes of Jen Psaki in the primetime slot. She's just not talented. Like, just not. Like, it's really funny how these executives in television, like, don't get it. Like, they just don't know what's ever going to resonate. I will tell you, like, I don't like Rachel Maddow, but she could craft a hell of a narrative. She could, go way down the rabbit hole. And she took us pretty far down, right? With all her conspiracy junk about Russia. I was like, what? They're calling us conspiracy theorists? Like, has anybody listened to this lady? But it was clever and it was entertaining. And she got a number, but this lady can't. Meanwhile, this lady, one Jen Psaki, with the gig that KJP wishes she had, is going to get called in as well. Trust me, a lot of questions for her. And she's already trying to, shall we say, cover her bases. Trying to say, well, don't say it was a cover-up. I mean, that sounds like Watergate, right? I played this, but we got to watch it again together right now because you got to think about what's heading her way.
I left in May of 2022, just for the facts here. And I have seen Biden once since then, when I took my daughter to the holiday party this last December after he had lost. And so I hadn't seen him in person during that period of time. I never saw that person, not a single time. And I was in the Oval Office every day that was on that debate stage. I'm not a doctor. Aging happens quite quickly. Were things that people saw during that period of time that were similar to that or would have been in a category of that? I don't know, possibly, right? And all these books are going to tell us.
Like, do you think that were they actively covering it up? Were they sort of in denial, or was that just a bad debate? Like, what is your read on that?
Well, this is what I mean about cover up is a very loaded term, I think.
Well, it means you knew that it was really bad and you're pretending otherwise versus you're deluding yourself, which I think is what people do a lot.
Well, I understand, but I still think it's like cover up is often like a crime, right? We're talking, when people use that term.
They say it's worse than the crime.
People use that term as they relate to Watergate or the covering up of not sharing public information about a war.
Yeah, and I'm not accusing anybody of a crime.
I understand, but other people have used that term, and I think it's a bit of a dangerous term.
So don't you dare use it, okay? Not when you're talking about me. I wouldn't cover anything up. This wouldn't be like Watergate, except, what do you know? The guy who wrote the book, and he's kind of a lib himself, although he's recognized reality, which is that he was part of the problem, right? A big part of the problem, one Jake Tapper, until his buddy George Clooney and David Plouffe and maybe David Axelrod and Obama behind the scenes took him aside and said, you know what, Joe's not going to win, which means Trump's going to win. So we better do something. And that's when they initiated the whole coup. I mean, it was a coup, guys. Don't kid yourself. Trying to put Kamala in there, of course. If they had allowed Joe to stay, right, if Joe had ever won again, to me that was kind of a coup as well because he wasn't actually doing anything. And this is what Tapper has exposed to the point where even he says, you better believe it was worse than Watergate.
It is a scandal. Yes. It is without question, and maybe even worse than Watergate in some ways. Right. Because Richard Nixon was in control of his faculties when he wasn't drinking. And, the idea that, we don't mean to exonerate. The only reason that we have the Watergate thing is there because we quote Archibald Cox, who was a Watergate investigator, talking about how powerful the presidency is and how presidents get surrounded by people who have a vested interest in keeping that president propped up. So that's the only reason we invoke Watergate, is just to make clear, like, it's not Watergate. Right. This is an entirely separate scandal. Maybe even worse. Maybe even worse.
Ooh, I think it might just be. I really do think this Autopen scandal might just be the worst. So you get the doctor getting called in, Kevin O'Connell. Meanwhile, Bill Clinton is out there making the rounds. We saw him on CBS earlier this week. I think I played you that clip on Monday, and now he had to stop by The View, where you know what they're doing over there. I mean, even despite the fact that Bob Iger is trying to tell them to tone it down, despite the fact that they're laying people off by the hundreds at ABC and Disney, despite the fact that they have been warned not to be so anti-Trump. They bring Bill Clinton on. I guess you got to ask him this question. And of course, Bill's like, no, nothing. Biden's great. Like, best Biden ever, right?
Mr. President, I want to ask you, last time you were here, you were actually fiercely a defender of President Biden's when people were questioning whether he should stay in the race, and when he decided to step aside, you praised his decision to do so. There have now been a lot of reports, books written with Democratic sources talking about what appeared to be decline while he was in the White House. Do you give any credence to those reports, or do you stand by your assessment of the former president?
Well, I think you have to pay attention to them, but all I can say is whenever I was around him, his mind was clear, his judgment was good, and he was on top of his brief.
That's right.
But look at that debate, for example. What happened in the 10 days before his debate, and what were the White House staff thinking? He went to Europe and back twice, and then he went to California once.
Yeah.
And he was 80 years old. What the heck is he doing that for?
And sick.
Yeah.
So why was that allowed to happen? So there's a lot of questions I don't know. All I know is I think we should think less about that and more about the future.
Yeah.
We now know President...
That's right.
Cue the applause, right? That's how it works there. Cue the applause, guys. I'm so sorry. But Bill, you're going to try... You think that anybody's going to believe you for anything? I did not have sex with that woman. My gosh. My gosh. So anyway, he's out there trying to run cover for him like the rest of the Democrat Party right now. You know why? They realize that this is actually going to take them down. I think that that's the reality. But they don't even, you don't even need this to take them down. I think that they are taking themselves down literally as we speak, guys, because you just look at all of the data coming in and people support what this president is doing. I got to get to the polls. I gotta show you what Trump is doing, banning people from 12 different countries. And we have a report that's gone viral out of TMZ 2 years after the fact about the potential fifth plane. When that happens, sing. We can make a deal, all right? We get to 1 million and you're all gonna get your own recording of Trish Regan singing some tunes. I gotta branch out from the national anthem though, right? In America the Beautiful. Hey, if we're really lucky, maybe we do like a Puccini aria or something. O mio bambino caro, quando me vo. You name it, we'll do it, okay? Or Vinci. Well, it's a tenor aria. I can't really sing it. You know the one that Trump loves, that he plays at all his big rallies. It's from Turandot. Vincero, vincero, vincero. Nessun dorma is the name of it, but it is the tenor aria, so it'd be a little awkward if I sang it. Anyway, it's a good song. We got some good ones. Anyway, lots going on. As I said, don't forget what he said. Remember Biden at the debate was going on and on about how he had protected us at the border? Come on.
I've changed the law. What's happened? I've changed it in a way that now you're in a situation where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. That's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look, we had the safest border in the history of our country. The border, all he had to do was leave it. All he had to do was leave it. He decided to open up our border, open up our country to people
that we did not want here, okay? And what do you know? You look at the tragedy out in Colorado. You consider the tragedy that just went down in Washington, D.C. But in terms of Colorado, you had a guy who overstayed his visa, who was here with his family, his wife, his 5 kids. Trump now trying to deport him. The DHS is running into legal trouble on that, for goodness sakes. I'm sorry, we went through this yesterday. Do we need another constitutional lesson? Do we got to go back to social studies, 5th grade? Hey, Tim Waltz, weren't you like a social studies teacher or something? Did no one bother to look at the Constitution? You name it, Supremacy Clause, Commerce Clause, Naturalization Clause, and it's all been challenged. And guess what? Every single time, the feds trump state and local government, pun intended, okay? So now Donald Trump coming out and saying he's banning 12 countries. Citizens from these 12 countries cannot come here. Iran, Haiti, Afghanistan, other countries across Africa and the Middle East. The restrictions will be placed as early as Monday, and he explained his position. He articulated his position, and believe me, he's got an intelligence department that's telling him something, and he's coming out with this ban for a reason.
The recent terror attack in Boulder, Colorado, has underscored the extreme dangers posed to our country by the entry of foreign nationals who are not properly vetted, as well as those who come here as temporary visitors and overstay their visas. We don't want them. In the 21st century, we've seen one terror attack after another carried out by foreign visa overstayers from dangerous places all over the world. And thanks to Biden's open door policies, today there are millions and millions of these illegals who should not be in our country. In my first term, my powerful travel restrictions were one of our most successful policies, and they were a key part of preventing major foreign terror attacks on American soil. We will not let what happened in Europe happen to America. That's why on my first day back in office, I directed the Secretary of State to perform a security review of high-risk regions and make recommendations for where restrictions should be imposed. Among the national security threats their analysis considered are the large-scale presence of terrorists, failure to cooperate on visa security, inability to verify travelers' identities, inadequate record-keeping of criminal histories, and persistently high rates of illegal visa overstays, and other things. Very simply, we cannot have open migration from any country where we cannot safely and reliably vet and screen those who seek to enter the United States. That is why today I am signing a new executive order placing travel restrictions on countries including Yemen, Somalia, Haiti, Libya, and numerous others. The strength of the restrictions we're applying depends on the severity of the threat posed. The list is subject to revision based on whether material improvements are made, and likewise new countries can be added as threats emerge around the world. But we will not allow people to enter our country who wish to do us harm, and nothing will stop us from keeping America safe. Thank you very much.
In other words, we don't want them. That's what he's saying. So in total, there are 19 countries because there are 12 in which they're banning. And then there are 19 because there are an additional set of countries that he's looking at saying, you know, I don't think that these countries really should be coming here so readily. We need to be more cautious. I mean, guys, this isn't that hard, right? Like, why wouldn't you want to be more cautious? In all seriousness, in light of what has gone down, in light of the anti-Semitism, in light of this, you know, challenge that we are facing as a free nation against places that simply don't like us. So again, Afghanistan, Iran being some of those signature countries. You also have Myanmar, Chad, the Republic of Congo, Equatorial Guinea. You have Eritrea, Haiti, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen. Now, they're also barring from permanently immigrating to the U.S. along with applying for tourist or student visas, an additional list of countries, including Burundi, Cuba, Laos, Sierra Leone, Togo, Turkmenistan, and Venezuela. That one actually is interesting to me. Citizens from those 7 countries, they write, will still be eligible. Actually, these countries will still be eligible for temporary visas, such as the H-1B temporary work visa. This ban is expected to go into effect this Monday, guys, and it applies basically to people who are outside of the U.S. trying to come in, although anyone that's actually currently in the country who leaves could get stuck abroad and not be able to come back. They are going to make some exceptions for the World Cup in 26, as well as the Olympics in 28, as well as Afghans who actually helped us there and worked alongside the U.S. military. They will have some exemption. But this is what you call common sense, right? And nobody wants this common sense when, for goodness sakes, you're looking at the guy who came in, right, to our country, enjoyed our hospitality out there in Colorado, and just did some heinous stuff. And now Kristi Noem, who's trying to expedite the deportation of his family members, is running into friction with judges. Then to heck with it, right? You say, well, we don't need him here in the first place.
Hi, everyone. I'm Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. Today, the Department of Homeland Security and ICE are taking the family of suspected Boulder, Colorado terrorist and illegal alien Mohammed Solomon into ICE custody. Now, Mohammed's despicable actions will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, but we're also investigating to what extent his family knew about this horrific attack, if they had any knowledge of it, or if they provided support to it. I am continuing to pray for the victims of this attack and for all of their families. Our thoughts and our prayers go out to all of them, and I want them to know that justice will be served.
So she's trying to do her job. She's trying to get people that, were related to this guy out of the question, and yet she's running into all kinds of friction. So what does that tell you? Maybe you just shouldn't be bringing people in the first place. I'm going to go back to remember when Stephen Miller got in a tussle on Fox and he was saying, what do you want us to do? In other words, someone comes here, they're accused of a crime, we deport them, and now all of a sudden we get judges saying we got to bring them back?
Number one, DOJ said a federal court cannot compel the executive branch to engage in any mandated act of diplomacy or incursion upon the sovereignty of another nation. So your argument is that you don't have to bring him back home, but will you?
So I want to correct, I hate to do it, Bill, but I got to correct you on every single thing that you said because it was all wrong. First, we won the Supreme Court case, clearly, 9-0. A district court judge said unconscionably that the president and his administration have to go into El Salvador and extradite one of their citizens, an El Salvadorian citizen, so that would be kidnapping, that we have to kidnap an El Salvadorian citizen against the will of his government and fly him back to America, which would be an unimaginable act and an invasion of El Salvador's sovereignty. So we appealed to the Supreme Court, and it said clearly, no district court can compel the president to exercise his Article 2 foreign powers in any way whatsoever. DOJ called me after that Supreme Court ruling, and they said, this is amazing. We won this case 9-0. We are in excellent standing here. So this has been portrayed wrong for 72 hours in the media. They said the most a court could ever compel you to do would be to facilitate return, which would basically mean if El Salvador voluntarily sends him back, we wouldn't block him at the airport. We would put him back into ICE detention, and then he would be deported either back to El Salvador or somewhere else. The Supreme Court said that is the most the government can be expected to do. So we won the case handily. The misreporting on this has been atrocious.
Okay,
Secondly,
I appreciate
he was
the
not, no, Bill, it's important. He was not mistakenly sent to El Salvador.
Okay, so do you still
He's
believe
an illegal
he is a
alien
member of
from
MS?
El Salvador. Hold on, this is important. In 2019, he was ordered deported. He has a final removal order from the United States. These are things that no one disputes. Where is he from? El Salvador. Where is he a resident and citizen of? El Salvador. Is he here illegally? Yes. Does he have a deportation order? Yes. A DOJ lawyer who has since been relieved of duty, a saboteur, a Democrat, put into a filing incorrectly that this was a mistaken removal. It was not. This was the right person sent to the right place. Now, some have said, well, but he had a thing called a withholding order. So a withholding order means you've been ordered deported, but an immigration judge is saying you cannot go back to a particular country. Here's the thing. If you are a member of a foreign terrorist organization, you cannot have a withholding order. Since he's in MS-13, there is no withholding order. Furthermore, the gang that he is accused of being persecuted by doesn't exist anymore in El Salvador. The 18th Street gang is gone. So you have an illegal alien from El Salvador. Bill, where are we supposed to send the illegal alien from El Salvador?
You haven't even
to what
allowed me
country?
to ask you a question. Are you convinced he is still a member of MS-13? That was your original charge.
Yes. Not only, but here's the thing, Bill. Yes, but here, not only am I convinced of it, not only is El Salvador convinced of it, Bill, he's an illegal alien from El Salvador with the deportation order. So his only options in life, Bill, his only options in life are to be deported to El Salvador or to be deported to some other country. That's it. He has a deportation order. So, Bill, you tell me, what country should we deport him to? Tell me, please. Tell me.
So Marco Rubio on Sunday morning
So,
said this.
Bill changes the question. But again, going back to who do you want in the country, he actually hasn't excluded El Salvador, I should point out. In fact, the only Western Hemisphere country that is on this list is Haiti. And he put Haiti on the list because, according to the White House, quote, hundreds of thousands of illegal Haitian aliens flooded into the U.S. during the Biden administration. Now, they're not wrong on that. Because don't forget, the Supreme Court came out the other day and said that the parole program that Biden had put in that afforded people from Nicaragua, Cuba, Haiti, and one other country I'm missing off the top of my head, I can't remember, but of those 4 countries, we had 532,000 people come into the U.S. And you got to ask the question, why? Why was this happening? And they were given visas and work permits and this kind of thing. And it was kind of like a, rolling thing where every 2 years they could get more. Well, I'll tell you, some people have some ideas on just exactly why this was going down. And it had to do with a restructuring, a total restructuring of our political system. And think about how crazy and awful that is. Really, guys. I mean, if that's your motivation, you don't care about who you're bringing in. You don't care if you get a bunch of criminals coming into the country. You don't care if they are not aligned with your values. You just want them here for political purposes. I want to go to my buddy Tom Homan here, because Tom was all over this, right? And he actually said the other day, I meant to show you this and we couldn't get it up, but I think I got it for you today. He explains it so well, exactly what they were up to. Let's listen to Mr. Homan, our border czar.
And as far as releasing so many people, you know why the Biden administration released millions of people in the United States? No one ever talks about it. I'll talk about it. Why did they release people into the interior of the United States and put them, rather than put them into an ice bed? Why not put them in an empty ice bed at $127 a night rather than in a hotel room at $500 a night? They did it on purpose, because when you put them in ice detention bed, they get a hearing in 35 days. Court records show 9 out of 10 people claim asylum, get order removal, they're gone. But if you release them and put them in a hotel room at $500 a night, their hearings could be 5, 7, 9 years if you pull out all appeals. And what are they hoping for then? That another Democrat administration is in power. They can warrant amnesty to millions. This is about selling this country out for future political power. That's what it was. The law clearly says if you arrive at our border without proper documentation, you shall be detained. Not maybe, not think about it, shall. And that's what President Trump's doing. Catch and release is over. That's what the law says, and that's what we've done.
Wow. All right, so think about that. 532,000 people that came in and, they got the royal treatment. And there was a reason, okay? There was a reason, a political motivation. And this is not conspiracy theory type stuff. I'm sorry. I'm sick of people saying that. You know what? Ever since we were told we were cheap fakes, when we told you how bad the health was of one Joe Biden, I think we got a little rope here. I think we got a little room. And I think I have the ability to tell you exactly what was going down. They were bringing people here for a reason. And that was because they wanted to restructure the political landscape of America. Think about it. You had 800,000 non-citizens that they were trying, until the appellate court in New York struck it down. They wanted them to be voting in New York elections, which I guess explains why the likes of La Manica, MacGyver, and AOC, and all of these people keep fighting for the rights of people that are actually criminals. Because do they count? Do they count for congressional gerrymandering, redistricting opportunities? You want them too in the jail so that you can represent them? Probably. I mean, there's a reason to it. But you know what? If they're possibly going to be invoking some kind of harm on your country, then you can't do it. News today that's going viral like 2 years after the fact. I think that's an important thing to keep in mind. I'm glad Dan Bongino, my good friend, is there at the FBI right now. Cash means business too, but I don't know him as well as I know Dan. And I'm sure Dan is going to try and get to the bottom of this. Lots of rumors about whether or not there was a fifth plane on 9/11, a really morbid thing to kind of talk about. But for some reason, this is resurfacing 2 years after this report was made by TMZ. I want to show you a clip from it, and we can talk about it, but think of it within the context of what Donald Trump is trying to do. He wants to keep the nation safe. We have now had 2 attacks. You see the anti-Semitism rallies going on campuses all across America. And, for whatever reason, Harvard is not doing what Harvard should and needs to do to turn over the information on the students that have participated in this, that are here from foreign nations. This is kind of important. As a result, what is Trump doing? He's saying, okay, we're not going to let you give any more student visas. Hey, Harvard, because we actually don't trust you to give us the information when needed, and we're in charge of who's in the country. Again, going back to the Constitution, Larry Tribe, hey, constitutional guy, lawyer guy, right, at Harvard. Maybe you ought to read the thing. We just did a big thing on it yesterday, so I don't want to bore you with all that, but my gosh, all those clauses tell you one thing: we are in charge of immigration. And in light of what Donald Trump seems to be very concerned about, in light of what went down in Colorado and DC and is happening all over college campuses, he wants to take this seriously. So perhaps amid that backdrop, that's why this particular report just started going viral. This again came out a couple of years ago, but is everywhere now. Let's watch together what TMZ is saying.
Taller, well-built gentleman in a tan suit, a young boy about 6 to 7 years old, a woman in a hijab, and a gentleman that appeared to be a type of bodyguard.
My name is Sandy Thorngren. I was a flight attendant on Flight 23 on September 11th, 2001. I was working in the business galley. I had gotten out, walked down the aisleway going up to first class, and I noticed there were 4 people in first class. What struck me at that time was there was a woman wearing a burqa. I figured it was a woman because that's who wears that. The opening of the headdress was very tight, and you could barely see his eyes. I did explain to our purser that I thought that wasn't a woman, it was actually a man.
I was absolutely convinced it was a man. Absolutely. There was no doubt in my mind.
It was a man, and I could tell by the size of his hands. He had hair on his hands. It was definitely a male underneath that burqa. I went back through the business section, and I looked around, and I saw a gentleman sitting, just sweating profusely, had a yellow t-shirt on. It was odd because it was 8 o'clock in the morning, and airplanes are cold anyway, but it was a cool morning. He wasn't jittery or anything, but I could see his face sweating, his body. His t-shirt was wet under his arms.
This was all happening sometime after 8:30 a.m., before the first plane hit the World Trade Center. The flight attendants on United 23 saw things that seemed innocent enough then, but may have been anything but.
The gentleman in the tan suit, he asked the purser that he show his young son the cockpit, and passengers were just not allowed in the cockpit anymore.
I walked up to first class again, and there was a child with one of the men, and they were just looking into the cockpit.
Okay.
In first class, we have a choice of meals, but usually only 2 fruit plates. So I was trying to get catering to bring more fruit plates, trying to do that.
obviously just such a tragic day. I think we all remember where we were. I myself was in San Francisco, where I was a reporter. I joke about San Francisco sometimes. I called it Sucks Francisco because, well, it sucked. Even then, that many years ago. And I had just been married about a few weeks before, and I had come back from my honeymoon, and I was delivering some business news on the air, or something about Blockbuster, probably going out of business, right? Remember Blockbuster back in the day? And the producer was in my ear saying, okay, now we have to cut. We're going to go, this is at like 5:50 in the morning, right? We're going to go to our coverage at our WCBS affiliate out of New York, because it seems that a plane has hit one of the buildings. And we thought it was a small plane. We didn't know. Of course, we went to the WCBS coverage, and I just remember being almost paralyzed, like really frightened. I called my husband, who, again, it was like 5:50, 6 in the morning, and he was still sound asleep. His company had a big conference in San Francisco that day. And people had come in from all over the globe, all over the world, and they were there. He went to the conference, and all they did was watch television and try to get information. I mean, the conference basically didn't happen. It was a very, very scary time, right? Like a very scary time. And I think it was a big wake-up call in terms of our vulnerability. In terms of this particular story going viral now on TMZ, it's worth noting that the FBI apparently did do this investigation, and the 9/11 Commission investigated this Flight 23, and they didn't believe ultimately that there was any there. But what I just would say on all of this is we cannot become complacent, right? Because I think that's the danger we've faced before. Complacency is not good, politically speaking, economically speaking, and internationally speaking. In other words, we can be generous, we can be nice, but we also have to know what we're getting into. And there were mistakes, many, many mistakes made. In fact, our intelligence department knew that this could be coming. They had seen apparently some dry runs of these types of attacks before. And so we were slow, right, on the uptake. Like the switch just wasn't activated. And I think Donald Trump is the kind of president. Don't forget, he actually blamed Bush. He took a lot of criticism for that. He blamed Bush for what happened because he feels like a president needs to be out in front protecting the country. So it's worth just remembering, I think, our vulnerability when you think about this within the context of what he's doing, right, with these 12 nations. And you can go see the whole thing online, I'm sure. Anyway, it's heavy talk. It's heavy talk for a Thursday, is it not, you guys? Let's get back to some happier stuff. The markets are doing mixed. They were doing well earlier in the day. We got a little bit of a mixed scenario here. Donald Trump speaking out. I'm going to get to that momentarily on the economy. But before I do, remember, you know what? We got some great polls, because as much as people say, well, I don't like what he's doing on immigration, or I don't like what he's talking about with tariffs. By the way, trade deficit just plummeting. I mean, he's got to be thrilled. Of course, it had skyrocketed previously last month because people were like buying everything from all over the world and hoarding it. Anyway, you've got Trump polls at an all-time high. This is unbelievable. Take a look at this. This is out of Real Clear Politics. And if you look at President Trump now, he's above where Obama and Bush were in their second term. That's pretty darn incredible, right? But it shouldn't surprise you in a way, because people voted for two things. They wanted to get rid of inflation, and they wanted a stronger border. And when you look at what's going down, we're getting rid of inflation, and we've got a stronger border. So there you have it, right? CNN did its own poll. Harry Enton is stunned by it.
Yeah, you would think after all of the waves, Kate Baldwin, after the last few months, the first 5 months of the Donald Trump presidency, right, the first 4 months of the Donald Trump presidency, that you expect that Democrats would have this massive lead on the economy. It ain't so. It ain't so. The party that is closest to your economic views, in November of 2023, it was the Republicans by 11 points. Now it's still within that range, still within that margin of error. plus 8-point advantage for the Republican Party. How is that possible, Democrats? How is that possible after all the recession fears, after the stock market's been doing all of this, after all the tariffs that Americans are against, and Republicans still hold an 8-point lead on the economy? Are you kidding me?
Are you kidding me? No, we're not kidding you. We're not kidding you at all, Harry. You know what? Take a look at those numbers. I guess you guys over at CNN are the only ones that don't get it. The economy's doing better. Did you see the last 2 jobs reports? Oh, we're adding jobs more than anybody thought. Well, ADP was a little bit weak. Donald Trump doesn't like that. He's pounding Jerome Powell saying, hey, we need lower rates. Problem is, you can't really get lower rates if the economy is doing better. And I actually think the economy is doing better. It really is. And that's what people are responding to. Again, Harry not quite getting it.
This is new CNN polling.
Yes.
How is that, when we look for trends, how is that trending with other data that you're pulling in?
Yeah, if it was just this one CNN poll, that would be one thing. But take a look at Reuters Ipsos. What do we see here? Party with a better economic plan. Well, in May of 2024, just before Donald Trump was reelected president, Republicans had a 9-point advantage. Look at where we are now in May of 2025. The advantage actually went up by 3 points. Now Republicans have a 12-point advantage when it comes to the party with a better economic plan. And again, this is after months of supposed economic uncertainty in which the stock market's been going bonkers, in which the tariff wars that Americans are against have been going on. And yet, despite all of that, the Democrats are down by 12 points on the economy. This speaks to Democratic problems on the economy better than basically anything that you could possibly look at. The Republicans still hold an advantage on the all-important key issue of the day, and that is the reason why, even if Donald Trump's approval ratings are a little bit lower than they used to be, Republicans are not out of the ballgame because they still have a clear advantage on the economy, whether you look at CNN's polls or whether you look at the Ipsos poll right here, in which they have a 12-point advantage on the economy.
Okay, so take that, Jasmine Crockett. You know, they keep trying to tell us the economy's bad. And I'm like, guys, you know what? You can spin all you want. You tried that for 4 years. You actually tried to tell us the economy was good. But we knew the economy was not good. Everyday Americans, they get it, right? They're the ones out there shopping. They go to the grocery store. They know what prices are. But Jasmine had somehow some kind of, plan to run for the presidency or something. She was speaking out, I think, on Morning Joe. This is nuts. I mean, my gosh, when you're looking at your leaders in the party being the likes of AOC, yeah, or Jasmine Crockett? I mean, Bernie Sanders, I'm no fan of his, but, he probably has a little bit more stature. He's just too old, so you run into that. But this is who they're looking to, okay, guys? And that is their problem right now. They don't have anybody that's representing the middle class in America. And this is another one of Enton's points. Historically, the Democrats have owned that space. But they don't own it anymore. And you know why they don't own it? Because they told everyone in the middle class that they're part of the problem. All those white middle class men, we don't want them, we don't want them. They're the problem, they're bad. Toxic masculinity. It's killing America. We need to be all about black women. We're going to elect Kamala Harris. Yeah, good luck with that. You can't just alienate people like that. You can't tell them they're the problem. When, by the way, that was your historic base, for goodness sakes.
And also in the CNN data, it does show that Republicans are gaining ground in an area that is key relating to all of this, which is when it comes to the middle class.
Yeah. Historically speaking, which is the party of the middle class, has been a huge advantage for Democrats. I have polling from NBC going all the way back since 1989, when Democrats had a 23-point advantage. 2016, a 17-point advantage. But by this decade, we already started seeing declines back in 2022, where you saw that Democrats led, but only by 4 points, well within the margin of error. And now in our latest CNN poll among registered voters, which is the party of the middle class, it is tied. This, I think, speaks to Democratic ills more than anything else. They have traditionally been the party of the middle class. No more. Donald Trump and the Republican Party have taken that mantle away, and now a key advantage for Democrats historically has gone adios amigos, and now there is no party that is the party of the middle class. Republicans have completely closed the gap, Kate.
All right, there's a lot of messages.
Again, this is not hard to understand. It's sort of amazing to me that they're so flabbergasted over all of it, and they have no answers. They ought to listen to It's the Economy, Stupid James Carville, who's like, what are you people doing? You get this David Hogue idiot. You get this Jasmine Crockett, like, leave the party, Ilhan Omar. He said that, okay, because you're not doing us any favors. And here's one that they're touting is like the next who knows what. And she's a disaster.
We've traveled to done over 100 events on behalf of other people. So what I'm trying to do is let everybody know that I'm a team player. And that's exactly what I hope, comes across. I don't anticipate, though, that the former speaker is weighing in. I've been talking to people while my letter just went out. I have been talking to people, and I did not get a sense that the former speaker had weighed in. I will tell you, though, that seniority is a thing that, Alex mentioned when she said she wasn't going to run again. I think, it's hard for certain people who have come up through this system to then say, you know what, I'm going to let it go. And it's been important for me to tell people that, listen, if we just had a halfway normal person in the White House, I wouldn't be running, because I really do respect seniority, especially because of the history of it, especially for like the Black Caucus. But at the same time, if we don't meet this moment, I think that we're going to continue to see our numbers plummet. I think we're going to continue to lose a lot of our support. And I think that when we talk about diversity, as much as we do on our side of the aisle, that even means in our leadership. And so diversity comes from all different ways. And so we've done a lot of seniority kind of votes. I'm hoping that we can break the norm, at least in this particular race, and give someone a shot who really just wants to help our team.
A mentor told me just the other day, you can't just want to meet the moment, you have to want the moment. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett of Texas, thank you very much.
Good to see y'all.
We'll be right back, folks.
Another one of those shows on MSNBC not doing so well, but Crockett has officially announced her candidacy for ranking member of House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. So she's climbing her way to the top, and she's got aspirations. It's going to take her all the way to Pennsylvania Avenue in her head. The same with AOC. Hey, maybe the two of them ought to team up. Guys, that would be great, right? Because then we're winning and winning and winning. Again, I go back to all-time highs here. Look at this. Doing so much better than a couple of other presidents, including one that was quite popular with the left. One Obama, right? Or even Bush. Amazing. I'll tell you, though, who's not so popular right now with President Trump, and that would be Elon Musk. Breaking up. He talked about it this morning. Donald Trump did, about Elon. I want to go to his comments.
To be doing, I'd like you to discuss it, the 2.8 trillion that CBO. This is something.
Oopsie daisy. That's another one of his comments I want to show you. Let me see if I can find this for you, because he actually did talk about how he was kind of surprised at Elon for coming out so viciously against this bill. Remember this big, beautiful bill, and he's not too happy with Elon for doing this. Oh, look at this. These are my friends at Florida Voice who put this clip together, so I want to show it to you. Florida Voice, great place. Drew, right? He's over there. So let's take a look. Here's Donald Trump speaking about his breakup with Elon.
But if they picked him, I would have won Pennsylvania. I won it by a lot. But I'm very disappointed because Elon knew the inner workings of this bill better than almost anybody sitting here, better than you people. He knew everything about it. He had no problem with it. All of a sudden he had a problem, and he only developed the problem when he found out that we're going to have to cut the EV mandate, because that's billions and billions of dollars, and it really is unfair. We want to have cars of all types. Electric, we want to have electric, but we want to have a gasoline, combustion. We want to have different. We want to have hybrids. We want to have all. We want to be able to sell everything. And when that was cut, and Congress wanted to cut it, he became a little bit different, and I can understand that. But he knew every aspect of this bill. He knew it better than almost anybody, and he never had a problem until right after he left. And if you saw the statements he made about me, which I'm sure you can get very easily, it's very fresh on tape. He said the most beautiful things about me. And he hasn't said bad about me personally, but I'm sure that'll be next. But I'm very disappointed in Elon. I've helped Elon a lot.
Mr. President, I just want to clarify, did he raise any of these concerns with you privately before he raised them publicly? And this is the guy.
Wow. Okay. So again, you guys see he's pretty disappointed, as he says, with Elon Musk. Elon tweeted, "Don't forget, I'm sorry, but I just can't stand it anymore. This massive, outrageous, pork-filled congressional spending bill is a disgusting abomination. Shame on those who voted for it. You did wrong." And then, he's sort of doubled down on this, and he's continued to be tweeting things out to the point now where Donald Trump is firing back, not with what you just saw, by the way, but in terms of, he's obviously not pleased. It's not reportedly. I think that's pretty clear right now. He's definitely not pleased. And as Don Baca points out in the comments, we've got Tesla down significantly today. Don, you were just saying it's down 12.8%. I just checked it in real time. I think you sent this about a minute ago, and it's losing more ground. I think I may need to buy some Tesla today. You know me, I like to buy when it's down. It's down 13%, actually now down 12.88%, Don. So it's catching up with you. But part of this is because of what Donald Trump just sent out. And people may have known this was coming, and so you saw the stock trading off. But he's suggesting now that they get rid of their deals. Rid of their deals with Elon. Woo! Okay, the easiest way to save money in our budget, billions and billions of dollars, he writes on Truth Social, is to terminate Elon's governmental subsidies and contracts. I was always surprised that Biden didn't do it. Wow. Okay, so this is a tough breakup. I don't think they're really broken up. I think, actually, Donald Trump will forgive a lot, and I think they'll get through this. And I think Elon has his positions, and he is an amazing guy. I mean, this is kind of awkward for us all, right? Because we like Elon and we like Trump. But I think that, he was kind of breaking with protocol there in a pretty big way. And it's upset a lot of people, including, you think about, how the House Speaker Johnson is trying to deal with all of this. And, he's kind of looking at what Musk is saying, and he's getting a little frustrated because you want to get those tax cuts, right? You want to have those tax cuts go through, and it's getting awkward. Let's take a listen here to Mike Johnson.
I consider Elon a friend. He's obviously brilliant. I just told you we credit him with all the big changes with Doge and everything else. It's curious to me what happened this week. And full disclosure, Elon and I had a great conversation, about a half-hour-long talk on Monday this week, Monday morning. And we talked about the big, beautiful bill, because I think he was trying to make a joke a couple of days earlier. It can't be big and beautiful. And I started the conversation, oh, yes, it can, my friend. It's very beautiful. So we talked about all the record level of savings. My friends, no government in the history of mankind has ever cut $1.6 trillion in a piece of legislation. We're doing that here. The extraordinary level of savings and the historic level of tax cuts at the same time, and all these great policy prescriptions. And I talked to Elon through all that and explained to him what we're doing, and that this is just the beginning of a long process of making government more efficient and effective, of cutting wasteful spending, fraud, and abuse. And you can't do it all in one bill. It took Congress decades to get to this situation. It's going to take us a little while to get out of it. But we have a very specific plan to do that. And Elon was encouraged by that conversation. It was a very friendly, very fruitful conversation together. And he and I talked about the midterm elections. And he said, I'm going to help. We got to make sure that the Republicans keep the House majority. We can't have the president impeached, which is what the Democrats would do on day one, as we all well know. And we've got to continue this. The Trump administration needs 4 years to do all this reform, not 2 years. The Biden administration, Biden-Harris, made such a disaster of every metric of public policy, it's going to take us more than one bill to fix it all. Elon and I left on a great note. We were texting one another, happy texts, Monday. And then yesterday, 24 hours later, he does a 180 and he comes out and opposes the bill. And it surprised me, frankly. And I don't take it personal. We don't take it personal. Policy differences are not personal. I think he's flat wrong. I think he's way off on this, and I've told him as much, and I've said it publicly and privately. I'm very consistent in that. But am I concerned about the effect of this on the midterms? I'm not. Let me tell you why. Because when the big, beautiful bill is done and signed into law, every single American is going to do better. This bill is geared for middle and working class Americans, and they are going to feel the effects of it, and they're going to feel it before the midterm elections. So I have no concern whatsoever. I'm absolutely convinced that we're going to win the midterms and grow the House majority because we're delivering for the American people and fulfilling our campaign promise.
Wow. Okay. So, look.
But if they picked him, I would have won.
And you heard that already. This is Donald Trump, of course, speaking out on Elon Musk and coming forward saying, maybe they're going to cancel his contracts. We'll see. Like, again, I think they're going to find a way to work it out. Right? Like they will. Trust me, they will. And by the way, I should point out that Mike Johnson actually just said he's going to go call Elon Musk right now. So there'll be some kind of peace offering. Don't worry. In the meantime, shares of Tesla are getting kind of whacked. As Don pointed out, we do have, though, overall some really good economic numbers, some very, very positive economic numbers that Donald Trump was talking up today. And they're worth listening to because as you look at those polls that CNN is so shocked by, again, it's not that hard. People want security. They want prosperity, and they want their opportunity, the American dream. And that's what Donald Trump is redelivering.
To be doing, I'd like you to discuss it. The 2.8 trillion that CBO. This is a group of people that are Democrats. They're very hostile to us. They just came out with phenomenal numbers, what it does. You want to mention that, Scott?
Yes, sir. So what we've seen is we keep hearing from the CBO that there's going to be a large deficit from the bill, which we disagree with, but using the CBO scoring, they came out and scored the tariff revenue. We think it'll be the minimum of $2.8 trillion over the 10-year window, which actually puts the bill in surplus if you include the tariff revenue, which they won't do.
It gives you a tremendous surplus, but we're not allowed to use that. For some reason, they say scoring. Nobody knows what scoring means. Maybe a couple of people, but nobody. Somebody sits in the background. They say, well, we're not going to allow that. They're not allowing other things that we have that are tremendously profitable for our country. But the numbers were incredible. And that was personal income and also very low inflation. We have very low inflation. We're down to 2% now. And maybe even lower than that. And when I took it over, it was a mess. Remember, we had the worst inflation probably in the history of our country. They say 48 years, but let's say I think it's worse than that. So we had the worst inflation in the history of our country under the Biden administration. Now we're down to a beautiful number, 2%. You'd actually like to keep it there. Better than zero is 2%. It's going down maybe to 1%, and 1% is like perfect. That's perfect. You don't want to have zero for certain reasons that nobody is very interested to listen to. But we have almost perfect inflation. Grocery prices are down. Everything. Remember eggs? We weren't going to buy another egg for the next 20 years. They were so expensive, right? Remember? You guys all hit me about eggs. Eggs have come down 400%. Everybody has eggs now. They're having eggs for breakfast again. But if you look at gasoline, very important. I think always the most important because it's the energy is the biggest factor. That's what happened. He screwed up our energy policy, and everything went up because energy went up. But now energy is way down, and they have states where you're at $1.98 a gallon for gasoline. So the costs have come way down. And one of the things I ran on was that. I ran on the border. We have the best border in the history of our country, 99.99%. It was last week, 3 people came in, 2 of them for medical reasons. We let them in because one of them had a heart attack. I think it was a nice thing to do. And one of them had something else. So we've never I had very good numbers for 4 years. But we're really topped it. And I want to thank Christy and Tom Homan. They've done a fantastic job.
Wow. Right. We were talking a little bit about the valuation on Tesla. I saw Don's comments. Don and I don't always agree on everything. I haven't spent a lot of time, in fairness, on Tesla. I liked it back before the stock split, so that was a while back. But I am intrigued. Maybe Rob and I need to do a little bit of a deep dive. Don writing that he's not so hot and not so crazy about it because he thinks that there are other players, I guess, in the AI space. I am interested in it interested in it because, well, it's down 13% today, and anytime something's down 13%, I get kind of interested. But I would also say I'm interested in the AI play there. But we haven't done a deep dive, so I want to be careful about recommending anything like that. I would encourage you, though, to go look at 76 Research. Use code word dollar. It's my financial research newsletter I started with my dear friend, Rob Horton. Brilliant guy. I actually spent like a couple decades running billions of dollars and very, very smart. Don, I know you're an options trader, and you're very smart too. We love having you here. But I do think that there is more potential upside to come for this market overall, and you want to be in it, right? Listen to Trump. He said it.
Amazing what a rising market will do. Oh, it's going to get a lot higher. In fact, I told people 5 weeks ago, it's a great time to buy. I got criticized for that. Now they don't criticize me anymore. People should have listened. But it's going to go a lot higher. You see, we've never had anything like this happen. It's an explosion of investment and jobs, and great companies are coming in.
Great companies are coming in. We got a lot of them in our portfolios. Take a look. Go to 76portfolios.com if you want to get 10 to 15 stocks in each one of these. These are our core investments. Okay, so the 76 Research newsletter. You get the newsletter, by the way, when you sign up for any of these portfolios. We've got an income builder, which makes mainly dividend stocks, inflation protection, a lot of dividend stocks in there as well. We've got some of our top holdings here. And you can see American resilience with the growth stock opportunities that we have as well. But back to Elon for a second, okay? Because this is not done. This is not done. I want to show you, I want to go to some more things that he's putting out on Truth Social right now. And guys, it's kind of getting ugly. Okay, so here is a Fox report that just came out as we speak, and it deals with what Donald Trump is now saying on Truth Social. You should hear it, and it helps explain the downside, of course, in the Tesla stock today.
All right, we are getting some reaction to the back and forth with Elon Musk and President Trump. President Trump has now responded to Elon Musk on his Truth Social account, and he posted this. Elon was wearing thin. I asked him to leave. I took away his EV mandate that forced everyone to buy electric cars that nobody else wanted, that he knew for months I was going to do, and he just went crazy. John, there are more coming in after that, but this is obviously a clear response to Elon Musk, who's been tweeting away since the president's words in the Oval Office in the noon hour.
Yeah, more from President Trump on Truth Social, including this. And this really, this is Lexington and Concord here. The easiest way to save money in our budget, billions and billions of dollars, is to terminate Elon's governmental subsidies and contracts. I was always surprised that Biden didn't do it. One of those contracts is a contract worth about $15 billion between SpaceX and NASA. Of course, SpaceX sending supplies up to the International Space Station, the whole Starship project. You ever watch those old Bugs Bunny cartoons?
Yes.
Yeah, where Bugs Bunny said, I guess you know this means war. Yeah, I think that's where we are right now.
I'm looking, and Elon Musk had been pretty busy tweeting away since the president shared his words about their relationship in the Oval Office. And a lot of it obviously was the insistence that this is too much spending, too much pork. And Elon even chose to post past videos and words of the president, perhaps suggesting that this is a different person than he was before and things that he said before. But this is a back and forth that's getting pretty fierce, John.
A lot of people expected that this relationship was not going to last very long, but I don't think a lot of people thought that it would go up in a fireball that rivals the destruction of the Starship in the atmosphere. And this is probably just the beginning as well. It's getting ugly, and we'll keep watching this. The president of the United States and the world's richest man, I don't know if they're on speaking terms, but they're sure on social media posting terms, because they are going at each other. I'll leave it for other people to characterize how they're going at each other. I've seen some things online characterizing it, but I expect that this feud, which could rival the Hatfields and McCoys, is going to go on for a while.
We'll keep covering it. We'll be right back.
Okay, so this is definitely kind of a big deal here. I mean, again, as we watch the stock price, it is just getting massacred, down more than 14% right now. A big, big deal, you guys. I mean, he is talking about sort of trying to decimate the company here by getting rid of their contracts, rid of government subsidies, rid of Elon Musk's contracts, various businesses. I mean, it would be kind of, a shame because he's kind of like the whole NASA program right now, but this is getting this is getting a little bit ugly. I want to, however, remind you of just exactly what Elon Musk might be thinking at this particular moment in time, because did we not see it? Did we not? With Disney. Remember when Bob Iger was like, I'm taking all my money off of X. I'm not going to advertise on X because it's Elon and it's X. And what did he say?
There's advertisers leaving. We talked to Bob Iger today.
I hope they stop.
You hope?
Don't advertise.
You don't want them to advertise?
No.
What do you mean?
If somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go f*** yourself.
But
go f*** yourself. Is that clear? I hope it is. Hey, Bob, if you're in the audience.
Well, let me ask you then.
That's how I feel.
Okay, so you know what? That's how he feels, right? That is how he feels. Again, 76 Research, code word dollar. And I think, you could probably bet that this is still how he feels. So how much of an effect is it going to have on Elon? We'll see. I think Donald Trump is pretty angry. He's pretty upset. As I mentioned, though, Mike Johnson's in the background at this moment, and he's working his darndest to try and patch things up. And I have a feeling it'll all get patched up just fine. Let's listen to Mike, again, speaking just minutes ago.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to get into details for personal conversations, but
You've already
I'm going.
You spoken this morning?
No, I'm going to call Elon right now.
Could I ask you, based on this White House meeting, and they have problems with some of the tax and tips, the overtime, salt, IRA, the Senate. I mean, it does seem like, you guys are harder at heart than you would like to be, certainly than you would like.
Things are not always what they seem. Okay, there's very fruitful conversations going on between the senators in the White House and between all of us. So I'm just as optimistic as I've been from the beginning. I'm convinced we're going to meet this deadline that we've stated to get at the president's desk by Independence Day. And there's a lot of work going on around the clock for that.
Okay.
I'd like you to discuss it, the 2.8 trillion that CBO. This is a group of people that are Democrats.
Okay. All right. So the breakup's a big deal. Is Tesla a good value at this point? Gosh, guys, it's down about 15% right now. Don, you still don't like it? I mean, it's down 15%. You know that this is going to pop back as soon as they, make up, right? Isn't it? Right? Anyway, like I said, we have not done a deep dive. I am attracted to Tesla because of some of its AI technology. Blue Moon adding to this conversation right now. They need Elon. I agree with you. You know what? Like Elon, look, he's not perfect and he wants what he wants. And let me just remind you, Elon Musk is a CEO. And he's the CEO of a lot of companies, all right? And he's kind of used to getting his way. Donald Trump is also a CEO, and he's used to getting his way. And I think Elon really believed that Doge was going to be able to come in and make all of these changes. And while they were able to make some, at the end of the day, you're also just trying to get something done, right? You're trying to get something done because you need to get the extension of the tax cuts. And that's what we hear over and over again from Donald Trump. And so he's looking at big picture, and you've got Elon looking at his particular aim. I will say this, Scott Bessent is very committed to reducing our spending. It is the entire reason why he wanted to get involved in the government in the first place. I don't think that Bessent and Elon actually saw eye to eye on a lot of things. So Bessent may be having a sigh of relief knowing that Elon is gone. But this story's not over. I mean, again, wow. Okay, we've got I should put this up here. We've got shares of Tesla off 16.8% right now. So this is going to be A really tough day for Elon. Oh boy, Donald Trump socking it to him. My gosh. So this is what the left is going to go nuts on, right? Just be prepared for that, because they're going to say, oh, he's vindictive, he's doing this, he's doing that. Again, remember what Elon said. You think you can intimidate me with money? I don't think so. So, look, Tesla's a volatile stock because you've got a volatile personality there. And then, this is probably going to be all fine in the end. But in the interim, we got some drama, baby. We got some serious drama. Joe pointing out that Vivek and Elon didn't get along either. You know what? That's right. Remember? Vivek left Doge. Very interesting. Don, that's a really high PE on Tesla, pointing out the very lofty valuation still on Tesla right now. Spooky Spoon saying, Trish, my respect for you has grown after this live stream. We're like pulling in elements live here. It's just me. Like, I'm watching the computer, I'm watching what's coming in live, and I'm here with you. This is a very big deal. Somebody else putting out, okay, is David Lorenzo? No, you're right. Steve Bannon didn't like Elon Musk either. So Elon definitely had his detractors. And wow, as we look at this company right now, trading down so significantly, it's down 16.10%. It's going to be a rough road. Hey, few tenths of a point there, right? 16.8% down when I put it up on this screen. It's great to have you guys here. I'm going to go look a little bit more into Tesla. We got some more news coming your way here this afternoon. Reminder to subscribe, to share, to like. It is really, really important. It helps the algorithm. Don will tell you that. The other thing that's great is that we are on top, right? Climbing top 100 podcasts here. It's just amazing to see. I'm thrilled about everything. So thank you for all you do. Make sure, as I said, you do subscribe. We're in the top 100. We love it. And I will see you here live again tomorrow, if not later this afternoon. Big day.